As you approach the abandoned school in Chernobyl, the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. The surrounding area is eerily silent, and the only sound is the rustling of leaves in the breeze. The school looms in front of you, a shadow of its former self. The windows shattered and the walls covered in ivy and graffiti. You take a deep breath and step inside, your flashlight cutting through the darkness like a knife. The aroma of decay hangs heavily in the air, and you can almost hear the whispers of the past echoing through the empty hallways. As you move deeper into the school, you just can't shake the feeling, and you feel like you're being watched.
Deep in the heart of the exclusion zone, the remains of the abandoned city of Pripyat lay silent and still. The once vibrant city, home to thousands of people, was now a desolate wasteland, frozen in time. The buildings were empty, their walls and floors coated in a thick layer of dust and debris. The streets were empty, with rusted cars and abandoned bicycles scattered about. As the sun began to set, a lone figure made their way through the ruins of the city. They moved silently, their footsteps echoing through the empty streets. The figure was dressed in a radiation suit, their face obscured by a gas mask. The air was thick with a heavy silence, broken only by the distant sound of crackling radiation. The abandoned buildings loomed like ghosts, their broken windows and rusted metal frames casting eerie shadows on the desolate landscape. A thick layer of ash and dust covered everything, as if time itself had stood still since that fateful day. The only signs of life were the occasional scurrying of a rodent or the rustling of a withered plant. In 1986, Chernobyl was a nuclear power plant located in Ukraine. On April 26th of that year, one of the reactors at the plant experienced a catastrophic failure during a safety test, resulting in a massive explosion and fire. The explosion released a huge amount of radioactive material into the air, which spread over a wide area and contaminated the surrounding environment. The disaster caused the evacuation of over 100,000 people from the area and led to the deaths of many workers and emergency responders who were exposed to high levels of radiation. The cause of the disaster was a combination of design flaws in the reactor and operator error during the safety test. When the safety systems failed, the reactor overheated and caused a steam explosion, which released radioactive material into the atmosphere. The immediate aftermath of the disaster was chaos, as emergency responders struggled to contain the fire and prevent further contamination. The Soviet government initially tried to downplay the severity of the disaster, which resulted in delays in evacuating people from the area and providing them with appropriate medical care. The long-term effects of the disaster have been devastating. Many people who were exposed to high levels of radiation suffered from radiation sickness, cancer, and other health problems. The area around Chernobyl remains contaminated and is still heavily restricted, with limited access for visitors. The Chernobyl disaster was a catastrophic event that released a massive amount of radioactive materials into the environment, causing widespread contamination and health issues for those exposed. Apart from the ever unfolding human toll from the disaster, the Chernobyl accident also left behind a huge area of radiation tainted land. A 770-mile wide Chernobyl exclusion zone around the site isn't considered safe for human habitation and can't be used for logging or agriculture due to contaminated plants and soil.
By 2017, however, entrepreneurs found a new use for the territory. In December 2017, a Ukrainian German company, Solar Chernobyl, announced construction of a massive solar power plant in the abandoned territory. The 1 megawatt power plant, built just a few hundred feet from the damaged reactor 4, was fitted with 3,800 photovoltaic panels. The Ukrainian government said that a collection of companies plan to eventually develop up to 99 more megawatts of solar power at the site. That's a lot of power, but still not close to the former output of the ruined nuclear power plant. At the time of the accident, Chernobyl's 4 reactors could generate 1,000 megawatts each. The accident at the nuclear power plant in Ukraine shocked the world, permanently altered a region, and leaves many questions unanswered. Today, tourists can visit the site, which appears frozen in time, apart from signs of looting, natural weathering, and the encroachment of nature. The impact of the disaster on the surrounding forest and wildlife also remain an area of active research. In the immediate aftermath of the accident, an area of about 4 square miles became known as the Red Forest because so many trees turned reddish brown and died after absorbing high levels of radiation. Today, the exclusion zone is eerily quiet, yet full of life. Though many trees have regrown, scientists have found evidence of elevated levels of cataracts and albinism and lower rates of beneficial bacteria among some wildlife species in the area in recent years. Yet, due to the exclusion of human activity around the shuttered power plant, the numbers of some wildlife, from lynxes to elk, have increased. In 2015, scientists estimated there were 7 times more wolves in the exclusion zone than in nearby comparable reserves, thanks to human absence. The Chernobyl disaster had other fallout. The economic and political toll hastened the end of the USSR and fueled a global anti-nuclear movement. The disaster has been estimated to cost some $235 billion in damages. What is now Belarus, which saw 23% of its territory contaminated by the accident, lost about 1/5 of its agricultural land. At the height of disaster response efforts in 1991, Belarus spent 22% of its total budget dealing with Chernobyl. Today, Pripyat is a ghost town. Its apartment buildings, shops, restaurants, hospitals, schools, cultural center, and sports facilities derelict, and its streets overgrown with trees. The city lies in the inner exclusion zone around Chernobyl. A rusting crib containing a baby doll and blanket sits in the Pripyat hospital maternity ward decades after the disaster. Hotspots of persistently high levels of radiation make this area uninhabitable for thousands of years to come. Abandoned toys, dolls with dead stare eyes can be found as you approach the nursery. While visitors are strongly advised not to touch anything, some items have been arranged for maximum creep effect. Black and rusty cribs in the old nursery, you can almost hear the soft melodies of music boxes, violently disrupted with panic during evacuation. This is not the place for vivid imaginations. It will take centuries before anything in Pripyat can safely be destroyed, and during that time, the evidence of humanity will continue to break down naturally, some of it less gracefully. The Pripyat amusement park should have been a fun addition to the town. Slated to open on May 1st, 1986, just days after the disaster. Obviously, the park would never open and has simply been just left to rust. The amusement park had a Ferris wheel, bumper cars, a paratrooper attraction, and swing boats. It has remained abandoned and silent, a symbol of the town's tragic fate. The park's Ferris wheel and other rides still stand, rusted and overgrown with vegetation. The once bright and colorful park is now a ghostly reminder of the town's past. Even though high levels of radiation still exist in the mossy areas of the park, it's a popular backdrop for ruin photographers. The park was also used as a setting in the game Call of Duty for Modern Warfare. It bears similarity to Six Flags New Orleans, another eerily abandoned amusement park, which has been empty since Hurricane Katrina. Capochi was a small village about 4.5 miles southwest of the Chernobyl plant. After evacuating the village, Soviet authorities found such high radiation levels in the area, they decided to bulldoze everything in Capochi other than the elementary school and bury it all in the soil. Unbeknownst to those who made this decision, burying radioactive materials results in their radioactivity leaking into the ground. In the case of Capochi, the radioactivity of buildings became part of the soil and water table, making the region uninhabitable for generations. The surviving school is an attraction for ruin photographers who have captured eerie Capochi images of old toys, school materials, dolls, and stuffed animals 3 decades on from the meltdown. Many reports of deformed and strange beasts near Chernobyl can be found all over the internet, indicating that radiation had severe effects on the animal population. To be sure, some severe mutations were seen right after the incident. Contemporary animals, however, are typically okay, even though their internal radiation levels are higher than most. They do not suffer significant genetic mutations, though some species do have issues. For instance, some birds have developed smaller brains, and some rodents have decreased litters or don't live as long. However, overall animal populations seem to be doing better now than they were when humans were farming there before. According to a 2016 report, some species are actually increasing within the exclusion zone. Yet scientists continue to debate what the long-term effects of exposure will be for the animals that live there. According to legend, several people began to see a large winged creature with red eyes in early April before the Chernobyl disaster. The creature became known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl, and many have drawn parallels between this creature and America's Mothman. Both creatures were supposedly seen right before disasters. The Mothman was spotted right before the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a tragedy that cost 46 people their lives. They are also similar in appearance: large, black, winged figures with glowing scarlet eyes. Survivors of Chernobyl disaster reported seeing the creature flying away from the reactor. Reports of the bird stopped immediately after the disaster. Those who believed that the bird was a paranormal entity were regarded as a harbinger of terrible things to come, while others believe it was merely a black stork. Nature has been remarkably resilient. Moose, deer, boar, wolves, and bears have been reported in the area, breeding in large numbers. Scientists have been unable to detect any large-scale mutations safe from fishing rods. These giant catfish swim in the radioactive water near the reactor. In 2014, Slate ran an extensive piece by Holly Morris on a subcultural phenomenon known as stalkers. These young Russians and Ukrainians, almost all whom are men, romanticize the apocalyptic environment of the exclusion zone, the cordoned-off area surrounding Chernobyl. They sneak in and explore buildings and sleep in ruins, and even bring Geiger counters along to see how much radiation they expose themselves to on their journeys. Stalkers take their name from characters in the novel Roadside Picnic, which was turned into a classic Soviet film entitled Stalker and directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. The term refers to thieves who sneak into zones harboring lethal phenomena, places to which authorities have forbidden entrance. Some stalkers of the exclusion zone are inspired by a Ukrainian first-person shooter game called Stalker, which is extremely popular. By sneaking into the zone, they can live out scenes from the game while sifting through years of frozen history. Soviet ID cards and other objects left behind are tactile evidence of a mythical world many of these young people grew up hearing about but never lived through. Stalkers court danger by eating fruit that grows in the zone and while sharing tales of ancestors who lived and worked there when disaster struck. They dress in paramilitary gear and wear gas masks and balaclavas and other such covers over their faces. Today, Chernobyl beckons to tourists who are intrigued by its history and its danger. But though Chernobyl symbolizes the potential devastation of nuclear power, Russia never quite moved beyond its legacy or its technology. As of 2019, there are still 11 operational RBMK reactors in Russia. Anyone who lived through 1986 likely remembers the Chernobyl accident, a devastating nuclear explosion and meltdown that traumatized the world. Here's what we know about Chernobyl's site today, as well as chilling archival photos showing what it was really like to live through the disaster in 1986. Worst nuclear disaster of the 20th century. Since 1986, the radioactive site has remained frozen in time and off limits to the public. After the reactor at the plant exploded, the resulting fallout spurred a crisis for the people of the nearby city of Pripyat and for those living miles and miles away. Today, a protective shelter covers the fallen reactor to prevent radiation from leaking, but that hasn't soothed any nerves among nuclear analysts and officials. The Chernobyl disaster was one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century, and its impact is still felt today. The disaster claimed the lives of dozens of people and has had a profound effect on the health and well-being of countless others. The area surrounding the nuclear power plant remains uninhabited to this day, and the long-term effects of the disaster are still being studied. Despite the tremendous human and environmental toll of the Chernobyl disaster, it has also served as a wake-up call to the world about the dangers of nuclear power. The incident prompted many countries to rethink their nuclear programs and implement stricter safety regulations. The Chernobyl exclusion zone is a haunting reminder of the dangers of nuclear power, but it also stands as a testament to the resilience of nature and the human spirit. Although the disaster left a scar on the earth, the area is slowly being reclaimed by wildlife and nature. Chernobyl was once a thriving community, home to thousands of people, and a symbol of the Soviet Union's technological prowess. The city boasted modern amenities like hospitals, schools, and a cultural center, and its residents enjoyed a high standard of living. However, everything changed on April 26, 1986. Chernobyl, full of ghosts of the past, desolate, abandoned, and full of lingering radiation. It stands as a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of human error and the urgent need for responsible and safe use of nuclear technology, serving as a testament to the enduring legacy of human folly.